when I was at RCA, I was mostly either on the fourth floor, which was the A&R department, or I was downstairs in the studios, or once in a while up in the overdubbing studios up on the mezzanine second. However, mostly on the fourth floor. I mean, face it, most of what you do has nothing to do with being in the studio. It has to do with preparing to be in the studio. You have to get it right. You have to find this. You have to do that. You have to find organized musicians. So, organize 35 musicians. You can imagine. And if you do that, like we did with Rick Gerard and I, and Al Schmidt and Richie Schmidt, we used to work. Literally every day from Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday, sometimes we even came in Sunday, depending if a group absolutely had to come in and record, and it had to be on a Sunday. So, well, that's what we did. We recorded on a Sunday. And, finding engineers to come in on a Sunday is not that hard. Or at least it wasn't that hard at that time. You did need engineers. You still do, but most people don't understand that. They think a computer can do what a real engineer can do. It can't really. Those things is about my good old desk. My good old desk was written on his good old desk. What happened is Harry used to have a piano, a little upright piano in his office. He had an office up on the fourth floor in the A&R department at RCA, and Gree Landon was on the fourth floor, but across the hall, and Bill Graham was there. Bill Graham is a very dear friend, very close friend, and all right, so how it all happened was this, Harry was always stuck for songs, especially at that time. In those days, it was kind of rough because he was looking for subject matter that would interest him. Very little interested him in the standard subject matter, you know from his songs. He was not interested in the usual things. And he was in pursuit of something deeper, some deeper knowledge. He always was in pursuit of some deeper knowledge. And for instance, when he and Keith Moon and Ringo and a couple of other folks would get together, it would be to throw around throw around these ideas and just explore. What does this mean? Where does this go? Where does it come? Where do we come from? What are we doing here? Why are we here? Do we indeed go anywhere from here? And if we do, where? And so forth. These were questions that profoundly interested these kids, who I knew as kids. And every gathering that I was in was more philosophical than anything else. We used to meet with Chester Anderson, the grand old man of the street philosopher, who was also a science fiction writer and a virtuoso recorder player, and also an editor at the LA Free Press, and who was a dear friend of myself and our entire family. He was a science fiction writer. Nominally, he wrote The Butterfly Kid, not a bad novel for someone who is not actually cut out to be a writer. So Harry is really stuck for a song. And he doesn't want to write a song about his piano, you know what I mean? He has already written Cuddly Toy. He's already making money. He wrote Cuddly Toy. It was fine. The Cuddly Toy thing is, just based on Cuddly Toy. Something you get for Christmas. And then the day after Christmas, you throw it over your shoulder and forget all about it. It was cuddly only for the first day, which basically describes most human relationships, And so he is in that kind of mood, in that kind of state, in that kind of condition. And he's sitting at his desk, and he's pounding, and I am trying to stay out of his way So I'm across the way from him. I'm in my space, my office space, and he was stressed, trying to come up with something. At that time, he had not yet signed his big deal with RCA. At this point, he was lucky to see $5,000 a year. I mean, he was just, stretched to the limit here. And he was making all his money off the sale of his songs to people who wanted to do covers. So he sold his songs out to people, and that's where he made the majority of his, 95% of his money. He didn't make $5 million doing that, though. He made $5 million doing it. Another story, another time. Let me get to the desk. So, Harry was not writing In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. He was writing, like without her. I sit alone in the chair. And there's cellos, and there's violins going off, and there's this quartet-y kind of a sound behind it. Bum 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 da, da. And these bows, cellos, and going off, and you got bassist. Actually, it was Ray Brown on bass, and it's a wonderful, beautiful sound of this thing. And this is going off, by the way, at the same time as In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, honey. And that's what was on the radio. And he's doing bum, 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 bum. Well, to do that, you have to have some inspiration. To do In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, I don't think you need much inspiration. You need mainly drugs to do In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, which, by the way, actually is in the Garden of Eden, but he was so stoned he couldn't say it. Did you know that? It's true. So, Harry was doing these very kind of lyrical kinds of, melodic and lyrical things, sort of like, kind of like, I don't know, Dennis was, kind of like Beach Boys, sort of like Beach Boys, but kind of his own way. I mean, definitely his own way. More like Miriam Makeba than Beach Boys, I would say. So it was very melodic, very beautiful, very gorgeous, and he had a wonderful tonal quality of great, rich, beautiful, rich, deep tenor, and down into the baritone, and he could actually pluck notes out in the bass range as well. His octaves, I don't know, 5, 6, I don't know. But he reminded me so much vocally. He reminded me of the Chtabe, which is Ima Sumac. By the way, a Catholic. He was brought up Catholic. He thought a lot about God. He was convinced that there had to be some conscious entity somewhere that was involved with this creation, with this universe. And he was actually deeply, very religious and very, very much in tune with the Catholic traditional beliefs. He also wanted to know more. And if anybody knew any more, he was interested in that. And this is some of the things that we talked about and he talked about with all his friends. And I talk about with all my friends. Our whole circle talks about this kind of stuff. And I bet your circle does too, or you wouldn't be watching this. So, that's what I think. People who are attracted to Harry's music are also attracted to the same idea that there is a higher consciousness, there is a higher life, there is a potential for spirit, and that the potential for spirit is not limited to organic life. Okay? I think we share this, and typically. And so that's where Harry went, and he's sitting there in his little cubicle, and he's staring at his desk from his piano. Bunk, 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 bunk. His hands start to go. Bunk, 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 bunk. So Mark and I were across the way, and Joe Reisman comes walking in. He's just kind of sticks his head in, knows better, goes back away, Everybody's leaving him alone. They're all leaving him alone. Oh my God, I wish I could. If you worked at RCA and you were our receptionist and you can remember your name, please contact me and tell me I can't remember your name. I'm so sorry. I would like to mention you. Carol? I think it was Carol, but I can't remember. There was a Sandy, but she didn't work there that day. I think it was Carol. Carol, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. I would like to know. And if you're out there, I would really like to be in touch with you. I want to talk about some of the things that we share in common in the way of memories of these times. Anyway, there he is, and finally he starts in, "My old desk does an arabesque." Da, 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 da. And just as he's saying da 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 da, in walks George Tipton. And as George walks in, he looks up at him and he says, "I got it." And he nailed the song, literally within seconds, nailed the song, just on looking up at George and George looking down at him. That kind of thing. I don't know what that was, but that contact at that moment electrified the space. And somehow there was a transmission. Call it that, an instantaneous transmission. I would call it a mystical experience, and so would Harry. Because it was. We don't know why this happens or how it happens. It's intuitional. And we rely a lot on intuition, more than we think, more than people think. And Harry and I recorded some talks that we did together on the subject of intuition, and which I will post at some point. So the function of intuition is to give you an instant answer without having to go through all the process, without having to do all the work and wait for the answer. It's an instantaneous appraisal of a situation and an instantaneous production of a possible result or response to it. That's what intuition is about. It's just quick. It's real quick. And that what that means is that rather than passing it through the machine, you're passing it through the thinking card. Yeah, it's an outboard card. See, you don't want to just think with your own motherboard. You don't want to think. You got to think outside your motherboard. Okay? No, really. So anyway, that was what Harry was trying to do there. So he imagined his desk. Okay, so now we're at the coffee stage of this thing. And at the coffee stage, he realizes that he has done what advertising people tell you to do. He has personified his product. He has made it real by making it human. He has personified it. So what he did was he saw his desk as not as a thing, but as a living entity. And it actually was that for him. And he said for a moment, he hallucinated the desk dancing. He actually saw this. He wasn't on it. By the way, at this time, Harry, I attest to this, was totally and 100% clean. Completely clean. Absolutely. The next week, I'm not so sure, but he was clean. And this wasn't a hallucination from alcohol or from something, some substance. No, this was just Harry's imagination, his vivid imagination, going to work for him and giving him something like what happened later at the Point was kind of an extension of his experience with writing this song. Good old desk. Started to become things like a teapot. Think about your troubles and bubbles and thing down and thing and up through the thing and this and so it's all personified. See, have you ever seen a moonbeam? Has it sailed across your window? And the moonbeam is now a real thing. It's a personification. It's really there. It's really real. It has consciousness. It has volition. It has attention. It has awareness. It is a thing that is aware of you, and you are aware of it. It's just as aware of you as you are of it. That's where he went. Okay, with that song in particular, it really was a good breakthrough song for him because it really did teach him a way of getting perspective, different perspectives, and using that in his songwriting, which he did. So the upshot of the thing is, so I said to him, "Now, why did you call it Good Old Desk?" He said, "Well, because Good Old Desk." He says, of course, he's always looking for the hook. This is Harry was. I call him Hook Harry, or Harry the Hook, because he was always looking for the hook. He was the greatest hooker in the world. I'm serious. A guy could come up with he had like 50 hooks waiting for songs. You know what I mean? It's like a passenger list, a potential passenger list out there on the docks waiting for the ship to come in, and this ship is a song, and there's all of these hooks waiting to get on board, you know. And he had so many of them, so many. Great ones, absolutely great ones. So ultimately I said, so what was the idea? He says, well, you just look at it. He says, look at my headspace, look where I go, and look where my preoccupations are, and you'll get it. And I went, oh yeah, G-O-D, God. So George Tipton was there, and Al Schmidt was there, and they both said they didn't get it. And so Harry says, good old desk, G-O-D. G-O-D is an acronym for what? Good old desk. The acronym spells God. Get it? God. G-O-D. Good old desk. God.